one live out their purpose in life?
I think by being authentic to themselves and being true to those desires that God is putting on our hearts. And, you know, I mentioned earlier about, you know, that there's desires that can either lead us to the worldly things, kind of like, you know, we're stuck on, hey, I want to be an actor. I want to go into, you know, be in Hollywood or maybe be on a stage in New York, and you've got that worldly goal for it. Mm-hmm. But whereas, you know, God puts that desire in your heart for, you know, having that stage presence and that charisma. He's given you that gift and that talent. But he's not calling you to use it over there. He's calling you to use it over here instead, and to start a ministry and to, you know, work with people on YouTube and guide souls that way. That there's so many greater purposes to the things that he brings us through each day.
Yeah. You know, I don't think, I thought about this one time too. I was like, well, you know, if, let's say that did pan out. Let's think about the alternative. Let's say I had this goal to be in theater or be on film or whatever from an acting perspective. Let's say that was the direction that he wanted me to go. And I always say that God didn't put me in that world because I couldn't handle it at that time. But if that was the direction that he wanted me to go, it isn't necessarily a ministry ordered direction, right? But it's something where and who knows where I'd be if I was involved in the industry as a whole, and how strong my faith would be. But the very fact that I wasn't, I settled down with my wife, and you know, we went through our spiritual journeys together and having kids and stuff. And that was really what launched me on a deeper level spiritual journey. But not everybody, I guess, goes to that deeper level, or, and this isn't to toot my own horn or tout anything that I'm doing, but it's just recognizing that some people are so resistant to God calling to use their talents and live their life out for specifically ministry purposes.
Right.
Or maybe it's this idea of ministry that they have in their mind of like, oh, ministry is going out and holding signs on the side of the road or whatever it might be. They don't recognize that there's little things you can do that are ministry in and of themselves to live out this principle of loving God, and living out your identity as a child of God, one that's created from and for love, right?
Well, I think that's perfect, where everyone thinks that, you know, if God's calling you and whatever your purpose for is in life, they think that if they're not becoming a priest or a nun or taking some vow of poverty, that they're not fulfilling God's will for their life. And not everybody's going to be called to that. That's simply not the case. And even someone like you or I, where we've got this passion for ministry, and I'm sure both of us would love to say, hey, I get to do this YouTube thing full time. But the reality of it is that may not be the case for either one of us. But we're still in love with the ministry and still in love with reaching out to people. We hold a day job, we do our thing, and we do this on the side, and we're still using our talents and our gifts to further the kingdom, whether we eventually get to do it full time or not. And some people will never be called to that. And maybe the gifts and talents that you have might not put you there anyways. That some people might be called to work in, you know, let's say as a police officer. You might not see that as a ministry of sorts, but if you can't see how protecting the people and protecting the public around you is not God's will, I mean, what else is there? So, you know, I really think that we have to change our frame of mind and realize that, you know, God's will for our life doesn't always have to be some holy adventure. I mean, in a lot of ways, yes, we do want to serve God, whether it's full-time or we just volunteer some of our time. But serving God is really in our everyday life. And that's where the Ignatian spirituality comes in, that you don't have to, like I said, give up everything, be like St. Francis and go running naked through the streets. You can serve God in your life right now with what you're doing.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for checking out this clip from the Practical Theism podcast. If you enjoyed this clip and you want to check out the full episode, you can do so by finding it on our YouTube channel. Definitely consider subscribing and ringing that little bell so you can continue to get updates and notifications when we release new episodes and new clips just like this one. I hope to see you soon.